Hello and welcome once again to another episode of the I'm Always Right Sports Podcast. I am your host, as always, the mouth of Michigan, Rob Mendyka. With me, as always, my co-host, the Merc Zone, Mike Merkel.
I'm right here.
And, of course, the brain, the lovely Emily Merkel. Alright guys, so let's jump right into it. The biggest news coming out of the past weekend, obviously, is the NFC-AFC Conference Championship games going on in the NFL. And as we predicted a couple weeks ago on the show, we said that due to all these rule changes and the inconsistency with some of the refereeing, it would cost a team a football game. And that's exactly what we saw last Sunday night. And honestly, I know looking at it, I know for us, as we were watching this game in preparation for the show, I'm still kind of in disbelief, guys, as to how things went down, especially in the NFC title game.
Yeah.
It's something where they've reviewed it and they've gone over it over and over and over again and completely missed the mark. You know what I mean? I think we can all kind of agree on that, where you completely said, wow, you know what I mean? They did a Madden simulation on that Saints-Rams pass interference call, and even the referees in virtual reality said, "Oh yeah, pass interference." So, it's a tremendous black mark on the league. Roger Goodell has been completely silent with it, which is bad. But I mean, guys, just from your reaction, Mike, I mean, reaction to both games, because I know Chiefs fans have a couple calls to gripe about. I think New England fans have. I mean, they won the game, so they're not complaining. But there was a couple calls, I think, against New England that got called too, where I went, I don't really know if that's the same. So just give me your overall opinion on how these games were officiated, and did it take something out of it for you?
I would say initially it did. However, when you go back, I actually rewatched the NFC game, the AFC one. It kind of happened how I wanted it. It was hell of a game. I think I have a hot take on the AFC game, but let's take the NFC for a second. When I would rewatch that game, and when you really take a look at I think Sean Payton messed up more than anything else.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
I always say
every
that because
Saints fan now hates you.
Oh, absolutely. And they all will after I say this.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. So you're under 2 minutes.
Yep.
The Rams have one timeout, and you have second down, second and 8 at the 10-yard line or the 12-yard line or wherever. What play do you run?
Oh, you run the ball.
Yeah, you run the ball.
Right.
He passes the ball and it's incomplete.
Right.
Now you're 3rd and 8.
Right.
Okay. One timeout Rams have. What do you do then?
Yeah.
You run the ball.
Right.
But they pass the ball.
Right.
Like, this whole situation could have been easily avoided if you just run twice. The clock goes down to under a minute, and then you kick the field goal. Rams have no timeouts. Rams have under a minute to go down the field 60 yards and go try to get a field goal. I think it's very unlikely it happens if they do just run it and kick the field goal.
I'm in agreement with you. I think the point of contention, right, and I understand why you throw the ball, at least on the 3rd down, right, just because you got Drew Brees, right, but to your point, going away from the run, and, you know, it's not like they have a bad run game. You know, they got Mark Ingram, you got Alvin Kamara, you have two of the best running backs in the league, especially duo-wise. I mean, that's top 2. So I agree with you. Emma, how do you feel about the officiating? Did it take something away from these games, knowing that there's kind of a black mark on the Super Bowl now because of how these games were officiated and the results coming out of it?
Well, I think in the AFC game with the Patriots and the Chiefs, I think Patriots and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I was like, sometimes I say things and I'm like, I swear I'm going to sound like an idiot one day. It's going to happen, everyone. But anyways, I think that one, I mean, there were kind of bad calls on both sides, but they balanced out. I think when it comes to the NFC game, and you have this call that's made right at the end of the day, there's no recovery time.
Yeah.
Or, well, there was no call.
Right.
The call was to not make the call.
Right.
And when it completely, effectively blew a game for a team, regardless of whether or not they should have ran the ball, or they should have thrown the ball, or whatever, coaching mistake was made there, or whatever, the call was still so obvious that you still have to call the call, whether or not.
I agree with that.
So, yes, it could have been avoided, but I mean, I think it definitely,
absolutely, you're absolutely
invalidates
right.
some of the game, and you always have talks about professional sports are rigged and whatnot, and you have weird crap like that
Don't
happening.
get ahead of me. You're moving topics around on me. I'm the host of the show. My goodness, but to your point though. But to your point, right? Is this is a tremendous detriment to the league, right? And the fact that they haven't responded publicly and said, yeah, we clearly have messed up. But
you never know Roger Goodell
does this add more proof? And we've talked about this on previous episodes and even off air where we've kind of said, where sometimes you feel like the NFL is rigged, right? Like you watch a Dallas Cowboy game and you're like, wow, man, they get the benefit every single time. You watch a Green Bay Packer game, they get a benefit every single time. You know what I mean? Like you just feel it, Yeah. And I'm sure New England, people who hate New England could probably say the same thing, right? Clearly, Lions fans, we would never, ever have that great. But does this kind of add more proof? Does this kind of give something, some credence to the fact that, you know what, I get it? Because if you're the NFL, right, and this is really a thing, and you're trying to skew it one way or the other, what better way to have a team that just moved to Los Angeles, a market you haven't been in a while, a young upstart head coach who's revolutionizing the league, right? And going against the stoic, like the model franchise of the NFL, the greatest quarterback of all time, the greatest coach of all time, to see that matchup, right? And like you're thinking, okay, that's ratings, right?
Yeah.
So for me as a fan, especially someone who kind of at times is like, man, it really seems like there's just generally just a general push towards one direction or the other. I think that some fans who have that same mindset, this doesn't help that.
No.
You know what I mean? And that blatant missed call is like exhibit A. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, I mean, so one more point to make before we talk about this.
Yeah.
I think it's weird that it's not like, you remember when the Lions played the Falcons 2 years ago?
Right, with the 10-second runoff.
The 10-second runoff, and you literally had no shot. I mean, and to talk about the AFC too, they went to overtime. The Saints won the toss, but just threw an interception, and that gave the Rams a chance to win.
Probably should have been a PI on that interception.
Absolutely, but I mean, the Chiefs fans are like, "Oh my God, like it's not fair. Overtime's not fair." But at the same time, you just saw the Rams stop the Saints, and then the Rams went down to score.
I agree. Well, I think we both agreed that whoever won that coin toss was probably going to win that game because
the AFC game absolutely. Yeah, nobody was stopping anybody.
Absolutely.
So that was just a point you have to make.
Yeah.
But to go back to what we're going to talk about now is.
Yeah, like, do you think, though, like, I know you're maybe not as much subscribed to that theory that the NFL is necessarily rigged, right? And I'm not saying it's not like wrestling where you know going in who's going to win, who's going to lose, but do you think that there is some favoritism, and do you think that this call and this miscall really does not help the league's case to showing, there's not some bias towards one team or another? Because having the Saints win that game, right, doesn't do anything. It's not a big market. They're not flashy, right? They're the Saints.
I would say that, but I also would say to the majority of people I've talked to, at least before the game, a lot more people want to see the Chiefs win. And it's weird because if I thought a team was going to get rigged to get in, I thought the Chiefs.
No, see, here's why I would say no to that. The market size for Kansas City, not very big. And two, if you have New England, right, and New England makes it and then the Rams beat them, that's bigger than the Rams beating the Chiefs.
I agree with that. But then people don't realize the big picture. Like, not everyone's thinking about that.
Yeah.
People go, okay, what was the best game this year? Rams-Chiefs.
True. Absolutely.
And they're like, oh, let's get a repeat. If the Super Bowl can be 54-51 shootout and one of the best games ever, and that's the Super Bowl, that's what people were going to try to go for. Me personally, I'm big in, like, I love Tom Brady. I like the Patriots and stuff. I'd rather have seen them go.
Absolutely.
But I could see, like, from the casual, just football fan, like, oh, hey, the Super Bowl's on, who's in it? And they saw Rams-Chiefs, and then they saw the 54-51 shootout it was earlier. I could see that people going that way.
And you got something to add?
So people love to hate the Patriots, though. So anytime you have, like...
Also too.
But, like, so I think everyone... Like, whenever the Patriots are there, I feel like people want to watch the game to watch the Patriots lose.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, like, regardless of whether the Chiefs or the Patriots won, people are still going to want to turn into the Super Bowl, kind of based on what Rob said a little bit earlier of, like, you got the young, upstart team and a new place.
You have this dream team that was assembled basically for 1 year, right? A lot of the guys they signed for 1 year deals. Talib's going to be free, you've got Ndamukong Suh's going to be a free agent, Dante Fowler's going to be a free agent. You have a lot of these guys on the Saints team or on the Rams team that's going to be a free agent, may not be there next year for the Rams. They kind of went all in, right? And they did it a different way than New England normally does. New England's always consistent. They've always have a plan, right? So to your point, Em, that to watch New England lose, right? It's people want to see that. People relish in the fact that when the Patriots lose.
Yeah. But I would also attest to that and say if the Patriots don't even make it to the Super Bowl, people will be way happier than, oh my God, we got to see the Patriots for the 9th time in 10 or
I don't know.
whatever.
Everyone loves a villain.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, but that's that's.
I still think the Rams are heavy villains. I don't know. At least in my opinion, like I don't want to see the Rams win. We're gonna hit that in another episode, probably a quick hitter episode coming in the next couple days here or so. But that's I digress. But will this become a catalyst? I'm really focusing heavy on this pass interference call, like most of the sports media has been. But both ways, both games, right? There's some calls that could have gone either way. Is this a catalyst for the NFL to either make more rule changes, right? Especially over time, we're giving everybody a chance, no matter whether they score or not, whether it's making pass interferences, being able to be reviewed, having a challenge after 2 minutes, right? Certain things like that, because those are the things that if that could have gotten reviewed, right? It's clearly a pass interference. They would have had it. If it's so immediate, where everybody went, oh my gosh, they totally messed that up, and it's an instant reaction. I think that immediately after that you go, okay, then we can fix it, and everything. You know what I mean? Everyone goes, oh my gosh, you missed it, but you have the opportunity to you know what I mean, to really fix the problem.
I think the only problem is, and this is we always bring the Lions into conversation, but so when they played Dallas that year and they threw the challenge and they picked it up, or whatever, I think the reason that this one is so much harder to make a rule change is the problem was it wasn't called. So now you're going to try to instigate a rule that now you can look at any penalty that's not called, and you know every single play has a penalty.
Right.
I don't know what would you just go for pass interference? Because I could see like if it was a pass interference, but it wasn't really a pass interference, but they called pass interference, then it's like, oh, we could just make the rule change, and if you can challenge pass interference.
because it was a no call.
But since it was a no call, now it's like, oh, he was holding him on the other side of the field, let's challenge that play.
Right.
And
I think there definitely has to be some parameters. I don't know. You're right. Yeah, that's something I didn't think about. That it's extremely difficult, right? Yeah. Which is why I always like to err, especially like on turnovers and stuff, right? I love to err on the side of, okay, you called it a turnover. Right? Then it's at least then it's reviewable for me to go, you know what? No, he dropped it. He didn't catch it. It's not an interception. Or no, he didn't fumble. Whatever the case is, right? Yeah. I'd rather them call it and then reverse it rather than not call it and then there's nothing, because now you're pigeonholed, right? Yeah. But especially in those kind of situations where the guy literally goes in and blasts a guy, those are the kind of situations where you go, oh, like that's just bad. Do you think that that's going to be a catalyst for some rule changes, or are you thinking kind of similar to Mike? How would you do it? It's going to be really difficult to implement some of those problems.
It would definitely be difficult to implement a fix, and no matter how many new rules you create, and no matter how many times you try to fix things, there's always going to be things that are missed. There's people making decisions and they're making them on the fly, as things are happening, and there's always, so unless you somehow put wearable technology on every player that interacts with each other and you have a computer making decisions,
of course,
there's always going to be
there's going to be some human error. Right.
There's going to be bias and human error. So I think it might be, I mean, I don't know if maybe they're waiting to say anything about it until the Super Bowl's over, or if they're just never going to say anything about it.
Well, if the Patriots win, then it gets swept under the rug, right? Because if the Patriots win, then that call in the NFC title game goes missed completely, right?
I think worst case scenarios if the Rams just blow out the Patriots.
Oh, that would suck so bad.
Because then you're like, well, the Saints could have won that game.
Yeah, don't say that.
And then everything just kind of
that would be a small disaster.
That would suck. Okay, let's shift now. We're going to shift away from the NFL, and good news for you Red Wings fans. We're talking Red Wings, maybe not so good news. We don't have the nicest things to say because, let's be real, folks, the Red Wings are a disaster. Okay? An outright disaster. And we're talking about the Wings. They're hitting the All-Star break here in a minute. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They're 5 and whatever in the last 20, it feels like. You're second to last in the division. You're fourth to last in the conference. You're not even anywhere near a wild card berth right now. I mean, what the heck is the issue? Em, I'm going to start with you. I mean, because I have some pretty strong thoughts on this. I know Mike has some pretty strong thoughts. What's the biggest issue for the Red Wings right now? Because there's a ton. So throw a dart at the dartboard, and I'm guessing you're going to hit a major problem.
I mean, as a slightly less than casual hockey fan,
yeah.
I think we kind of have an unusual issue with the Wings right now. Maybe not unusual for hockey, but they have a young team.
Right.
That, you know, they're trying to hone, they're trying to build, maybe not doing the best job. And then we have some older, more expensive players on the card, or at least
on the
salary cap
that aren't playing.
That not playing.
Right.
Because Zetterberg's not playing anymore.
Right.
I think there's one or two.
Yeah, Franzen's not, and they're still paying off Stephen Weiss's contract as well.
Oh, I forgot about that one too. Yeah. So they don't have a lot of experience.
No.
They have a young team, and they're paying for experience that isn't on the ice.
Correct.
And so you create a salary cap problem and just like a youth problem.
Absolutely.
And
And you're absolutely right. And that's a huge issue, right? And that's the fact that the Zetterberg thing, you're kind of in a tough spot because he retired, right? The Franzen thing, you decided to extend Franzen instead of Hossa. That's been beaten to death, right? But like the signing of these guys like Stephen Weiss, who played for you for a year, was useless, and now you had to buy out his contract just to get him off the team. And you're young, but you're not developing, and obviously there's bright spots. Larkin's played well. Athanasiou's played well. You have pieces there that are bright spots for this team, but as a whole, you look terrible. You can't stop anybody. You're 25th against goals against. You're 25th in scoring, so you can't score, but you can't stop anybody from scoring on you. It's absolutely ridiculous. You got an albatross of a contract like Jimmy Howard, and he somehow made the All-Star game. Are you kidding me? It's absolutely ridiculous. Mike, same question. What the hell's the issue? Because I'm frustrated because I'm not one of those people who lived and died by the streak. The NFL, not the NFL, the NHL playoff streak that the Wings had for so long. But my goodness, if you're gonna tear it down, and let's be done with it. Let's suck and let's just embrace the suck, just so we can get back into it, right? But I don't think they're trying to do that.
No, they're in a weird situation where they kind of want to they don't want to commit to tanking,
the full rebuild,
but they don't it's weird. They're like, I think we might have enough pieces to win, but then you lose 10 in a row, and then you're like, we probably don't have enough pieces,
right? And Holland even said, well, winning a Stanley, if you expect a Stanley Cup every year, you're crazy. It's not expecting a Stanley Cup; it's expecting to be competent out on the ice. I mean, you have the fourth worst record in the conference. I mean, you're terrible. You're not. It's not like you're going out there and you've got a whole. It's like you might as well have 12-year-olds out there because it's about as productive. I'm going to be honest with you. So and to segue to that, right? I mean, who's to blame? Right, and then there's two major people, right? Yeah. Obviously, the players need to play, obviously, but is it Ken Holland or is it Jeff Blashill? I mean, because there's both of those pieces where you go there. I think there's blame to go to both.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I wouldn't maybe not even equal blame. I don't have a percentage of blame for each side.
Right.
But so the GM's job is to get players, it's to get the contracts.
Right.
So
assemble the team.
Yeah, assemble the team basically, and then you have the coach who's supposed to be coaching the team. Mm-hmm. I think Blashill does a terrible job at coaching, developing these players up. But I also think that Holland is bad at getting these contracts. You're paying Jimmy Howard tons of money. Yeah. He's one of the worst goalies.
He's got $5 million a year, which in hockey terms is a lot. It's not like the NFL. It's not like the NBA where these contracts are ginormous, right? It's a very small cap in pro leagues, right? Mm-hmm. They're not paid a ton. So when you sign a guy for 5 years, $30 million, that's a huge contract in hockey terms. So everyone kind of gets some context.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's a big problem. I guess I'll blame more Blashill if we're gonna blame somebody because I just think that he's not developing someone like Larkin who could be a star,
right?
And he's just kind of
you see him, and he's leading he's leading our team in goals and stuff like that. But he's not right. We're not seeing that development outside of him, right? And you're not seeing this where it's oh man, we got all these great guys and they're so good in Grand Rapids, and they come up here and we look like they don't know what the hell they're doing. Yeah. Same question: is it Holland or is it Blashill? Which one's to blame? Mike's saying Blashill because he knows that they're up against the salary cap. But I mean, to be devil's advocate here, don't you think that Blashill would point the finger at Holland and go, yeah, but you put me in the situation. I have to inherit this team that's broken, and I got to put together a competent hockey team and go out there and compete every night.
I don't know. To go back to our last episode talking about a similar issue, kind of like the NFL teams, we got the coach and the
GM,
and the GM. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I say get Kenny out of there. Tell Kenny sayonara. Get him out. Tell him back. I think that if you mismanage a team, you put a coach in a really difficult position, and I think we often put a lot of extra blame on coaches, just compared to they're working with what they got. And so, I think that Blashill definitely has a responsibility to do more, do better, train these guys better. I mean, your cap is just like, as a finance person, it's uber screwed up. You have assets on your books that you're not getting any return on.
For years on end, too. I mean, we haven't seen Johan Franzen skate on the ice for several years. And not due to any fault of his own, let's be clear here. I mean, he's got concussion problems, But the point being is that you signed a guy for this long-term extension, and you got very little into that return. So I guess my next question, to show some optimism, I guess, into this, right, is what do they need to fix? Because in my opinion, there's a couple things. Number one, you need to figure out a way to get Jimmy Howard off your books, right? Yeah. Even if that means you take a bit of that salary back and you're paying some of it, if you can get him off your books, Zetterberg comes off in a couple. I think Franzen, this is his last year where he's getting paid. You're still paying Stephen Weiss $1.6 million next year, basically to not play for you. That's how you set that up. Nice going. You know what I mean? So I don't think Zetterberg's very long on the books anymore, and so you're kind of in a situation to where you're stuck because you're paying some of these guys, and you've even signed some guys too, where you're like, what are we doing? So that are still going to be on the team. Even I think that you've run this team, this hockey team, like you could back when they were winning, where there was no cap, and you were able to sign these guys team-friendly deals just to go win a championship, and then they go and they go sign elsewhere. But now you're in a situation where if you're not building, you're dying. It's that simple. Absolutely. You know what I mean? So I mean, and we'll go back to you. What do you think they need to do to get back on track?
Like I said, I think get rid of Ken Holland.
Right.
Maybe bring in some old Detroit talent. Maybe get like a Steve-O in the building.
Right, yeah, some Stevie Y action, right? To take over, right? Because he's built a team, right? He built a team in Tampa that's been competitive, who, as we should all recognize, because his team kicked us out of the playoffs for 3 straight years. So you should know that, right? So I agree with you.
I think you'd like, and I think having Steve, this is like just like a marketing kind of thing, but having Steve back in Detroit,
absolutely,
I think it really, like, you rally the fans, you rally confidence, you get people, like, I think right now
you have the captain coming back, basically, is what you have. You have you know what I mean, it's Gordie Howe, Steve Yzerman, and Zetterberg, and Lidstrom, I guess, to a certain extent. But those are the 3 people that you synonymously think when you think Detroit Red Wings, you think those guys. So to have Yzerman come back in a position to really make change for this team, I think would be huge, and I think it would revolutionize and it would update the way we do things as far as how we scout, how we draft, how we sign free agents, how we structure contracts, everything. You know what I mean? Because you look at Tampa Bay, they've had success. They've gone on to Stanley Cup Finals and everything. They've signed smart contracts. They've paid their big names, and they've found pieces in the rotation to be competitive. Mike, same question to you. What do they need to do to get back on track? Is hiring Steve Yzerman going to be the #1 priority for them coming this year?
I think that's a top priority. I think somehow get rid of Howard's contract.
Yeah.
Honestly, at this point, and we'll talk basketball down the line here today, but you just have to get rid of some of these bad contracts that they have and try to just
right. Even if it's not necessarily to spend it right away, it's to have the money available to go get that guy that puts you over the top.
Yeah, I think it's going to take, I think we talked about it in our first episode, it's going to take a couple years to rebuild this back up, because if you can get rid of his contract and you get rid of a couple other guys' contracts, and then you do get Steve-O to come back as your GM, then if Blashaw can start developing these players to become better and incorporate, and then you can get, a better goalie, say, or get a better, just upgrade with the money that you'll have in a couple of years, then I think that's when you can start seeing this Red Wings team take off.
And be back to what we're used to.
So I think that's what you just need to get these guys off the books. Hopefully this year you can, if not at the least in off-season.
And I give Holland credit. I mean, he has built championship teams. We have won several Stanley Cups under his regime, so it's not just burying him, but I think it's time to kind of segue into the new era of Detroit Red Wing hockey. And I think if Larkin you think is the guy, then that's fine. But you need to have other pieces around him. You need to have some veteran guys that are really going to contribute in a way you hope to. I like the draft they have with Zadina coming in. I know he's been playing pretty well in the minors, but I agree with both of you guys. Clearly, there needs to be a complete overhaul in the way we do things and kind of transition to the new way of the NHL. That's going to be it for the first part of this episode. We'll probably be hearing a commercial really through, plug in all of the social medias and all that good stuff. So we will be right back with part 2.
Hey guys, it's your favorite member of the I'm Always Right team, Emily the Brain, coming to remind you
to check us out on social media. Instagram, Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter. You can find us all at I'm Always Right, or our handle is I'm Always Right PC on all of the social media platforms.
Hey guys, this is Rob, also reminding you that we are now on iTunes, Spotify, and Google Play Music, and YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel on YouTube and to look us up by typing in I'm Always Right Sports Podcast. That's the I'm Always Right Sports Podcast, iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, and now YouTube. Be sure to like, subscribe. Thank you for all the support. Now here's part 2 of this week's episode.
Okay, and we're back for part 2 of this week's episode. Now we're going to go right in. We're going to shift from the Detroit Red Wings to the Detroit Tigers. And once again, I wish that we had more positive things to say about this drowning franchise. But here we go. The Tigers basically came out and said, a couple days ago that basically GM Avila said they're not going to be spending any money in free agency. True big money, right, in some of these top guys until probably 2021, 2022. Which I think I give him credit a little bit for being honest about it, I guess. But at the same time, as a fan, I was pretty flabbergasted to say, okay, yeah, we're still not going to be there this year, which we kind of know. We're not going to be there next year, but maybe a year from that. So 2021 at the earliest is when you think you're going to be ready to even start competing again, where you're not going to go out there and just put out a whole bunch of guys that people can't even name anymore. That's a rough go. I'm going to start with you as a fan, basically in the leadership and the guy who's, leading this franchise really, and be able to go, yeah, we're not going to compete. We're going to be terrible. We're not going to be very good for the next several years, basically. I mean, as a fan, how do you respond to that? If nothing else, we're not the biggest Tigers fans here on the show, but we will support them enough to know that it's absolutely inexplicable to think, they came out and said we're going to suck for 3 years.
Well, they kind of have sucked the past couple years, so you're right on a really long streak there.
That's what I'm saying. But that's the point, though, right? Is that you've already been terrible for the past 2 seasons, and now you still think you've got 3 more years after that, before you could even start becoming competitive again.
I admire honesty. I do. I think it's kind of an odd statement. We just all need a little R&R, some rest. We're not really gonna try for the next season. Don't count on the one after that either.
Right.
It's very
maybe the one after
then why am I buying tickets to go see your games? Why am I buying your merch? Why am I supporting your team?
Absolutely.
Why am I tweeting about stuff why am I if you're not putting the effort in, unless they have I didn't watch the whole I don't really know the whole thing, but I don't know if they have a very good reason for why they're not.
Well, here's the deal. They're doing a full rebuild, and Mike, before we kind of shift to that, though, as a fan, what do you say? I'm pretty heated about it. So clearly, what do you? Are you the same way? Because I was pretty annoyed by that. I understood it, but at the same time, I'm like, really, 3 more years, huh?
Yeah, I think this is going to get into our next topic a little bit.
Yeah,
but I actually think, as just a general Tigers fan,
right.
It's very bad for Tiger. If the Lions or the Pistons or something hey, we're gonna take 5 years off to try to rebuild. We'd all just what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I think for the long term, this gives you time actually, and you're telling everybody, hey, we're gonna suck probably.
Right.
And you're it's not like you have false hopes we're gonna try to be good, but we're not gonna be good. You're telling everybody, hey, we're probably gonna win 50 games.
Yeah.
And by saying that, you're gonna give your young prospects time to go into the minors and develop. And you can also, get these contracts out that you're probably still paying off from getting rid of JD and all this stuff that you just got rid of last year or the year before that. And long term, I think this is actually probably the best thing the Tigers could do. But right now, going into this season, the next season, you're
right.
No one's going to watch Tigers baseball.
And to your point, right, contrary to what the Red Wings are doing, right, they're committing fully to the rebuild. So I do give them credit. And I think going to our next topic where we basically, do we agree with the rebuild process? I think as a whole, yes, right? It's just very alarming to hear your general manager say, yeah, we're not going to be able to compete for 3 years. But to your point, if you're able to really tear it down, you draft, you had the first overall pick, you drafted Casey Mize out of Auburn, you've already invited him to spring training. He's a guy that to be on the lookout for. You have some other Alex Faedo, who you drafted the year before that. He's somebody to be on the lookout for. You have talent in the minors, right? It's the first time our minor league system has been where it's been, in a long time. So you're kind of in a situation where I agree with the fact that they want to rebuild. I agree with the fact that they want to come in and say, we're going to build this thing up the right way. We're going to build a consistent winner. We're not going to be average. If we're going to do it and we're going to invest in people, we're going to go all the way. We're going to go try to win.
Yeah.
Right? So I can appreciate that. I mean, I agree with the full rebuild. It's just really hard for somebody to tell me, yeah, like if Bob Quinn came out tomorrow and said, yeah, we're gonna take 5 years to rebuild this thing,
exactly.
I'd be furious. You know what I mean? But obviously they're in different situations, right? So I know, Mike, you're kind of on the side of doing this full rebuild.
I think if you're gonna do a rebuild, just do it. Just do it.
Right.
Like I don't like Pistons right now. Yeah. They kind of need a rebuild, but they're like, we might have the pieces to win.
Right.
If you don't think you can win, you're not going to.
Absolutely.
You have to.
Great call.
Believe in it, and if you don't believe in it, then I think you should just kind of scrap the whole thing.
Absolutely. Same question, right? Are you in support of this rebuild, or do you think that what are you doing? No, you have some pieces here. You got Miggy, right? That's about it, because they're going to trade Castellanos, I'm sure, pretty quickly here. So I mean, what?
It seems like unusual timing that they're like, oh yeah, we're going to take the next 2 years to rebuild, but it's kind of like, okay, well, have you been doing this for the past 2 years too? Like,
well, and I think the problem is twofold, right?
But I support taking the time to build a team from the ground up and make it better and do the right thing. But it's just, it all seems like odd.
Well, baseball is very cyclical, right? It's either you're going up or you're going down. There's no in between, right? There's no average baseball teams. It's either you're on your way, you're trying to build towards a World Series, or you're not, or you're past that, right? Yeah. The Tigers are clearly past that. They had their chance, and I think the problem is, and why this rebuild's going to take a little bit longer, is the last year where Mr. Ilitch was still alive and was running the team, and he kind of gave Avila the opportunity to say, no, try and win one more time. They went and signed. Young. They went and signed Zimmerman to these big contracts, right? They signed Upton. They went and got these guys and you paid this big money to, but then you also paid guys like Victor Martinez a whole bunch of money, who finally he's off the books. You paid Miggy a ginormous contract. You had guys that you paid that are now either old or are not playing for you anymore and are not the same guys. So you kind of hurt yourself by trying to still get that last little bit out of this team that you could, and then you realized, well, yeah, Scherzer, Verlander, and David Price all on the same team, and, you know what I mean, and you still couldn't win. Mm-hmm. So I think doing this now, I think you set yourself back when you made those moves a couple of years ago, even though you got rid of some of those contracts. But I mean, that Mickey contract alone is an albatross.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? It's terrible. Don't get me wrong, he's done a lot, but holy crap. Okay. Bottom line, yes or no answer. Are you going to watch this team at all this year? Besides for research for the show, I mean, are you going to watch out of pure enjoyment?
I mean, I'll be the first to say,
yeah,
I don't watch much baseball for pure enjoyment. Like, I'm just going to say it straight up. Like, I watch playoffs all the time. Like, I watch every single playoff game.
Right.
But, like, through the regular, especially, baseball's hard because 162 games.
Yeah.
That's why I have, like, sometimes I have problems with the NBA.
Oh, yeah.
And, like, you watch one game and they lose, but you're like, you have, like, 80 more games left. You know what I mean?
I know, right?
Like, baseball, it's like, you still have over 100 games to play.
Right. They can lose 10 in a row and be like, well.
Yeah, you still got 150 left. Like, it's just kind of like, the regular season to me, until it hits near, like, like August, September, doesn't really matter that much.
I agree.
Like, you can lose a game or two, and it's kind of like you lost a few. That's cool.
Are you going to watch this team at all, besides any games that we're forced to go to due to a work function?
Yeah, due to a work function. If you tell me, honey, I really want to watch the Tigers today, I'm going to look at you and go, first of all, are you drunk?
Yeah.
Second of all, I mean, okay. But I don't think I will ever sit down on my comfortable bed in my room and pop on the Tigers.
And Tigers fans, we're not trying to ignore the Tigers. Same thing with the Red Wings fans. We're not trying to ignore them, but there's just so little to talk about right now. They haven't made any big splashes. There hasn't been anything going on in baseball, which is a topic we'll probably hit on a future episode. But let's shift now from Tigers to another team. It seems like a really negative episode today. I don't know what it is about it. But we're going to talk about the Detroit Pistons. Now, obviously, coming out of they're going right into the All-Star game here pretty quickly. They're 24th in the league in attendance, okay? You'd think that because, you got a new stadium, Little Caesars Arena is a fantastic place to be. I mean, there's not a bad seat in the house, really. We've been there a few times. We went there earlier this year for a Pistons game. And they're technically in the running. They're only a spot away. They're only like 2 games behind Charlotte right now to get into the playoffs right now as the 8th seed, rather to go get buzzsawed by the Raptors or the Celtics. But point being, should we care more about this basketball team? Because clearly Detroit does not, right? Clearly nobody does. But should we care more about them? Because they're not as bad as the Wings. They're not as bad as the Tigers are going to be. They're technically at least somewhat competitive. Yeah. They're in the hunt, but yet no one really cares. Why, Mike?
I think no one cares that much because as to your point, they know if they get in, they're getting swept probably in the first round by either the Raptors, Bucks, or Celtics, or someone of that sort.
Right.
So I don't have much to care about too much. Like when I think they're the most like generic basketball team out there. Like every team,
they're so plain. They're like stale crackers.
Yeah. It's like every team. It's like watching like the Cincinnati Bengals play football.
That's such a great reaction. That's like a great comparison.
It's just like you just kind of watch them.
Yeah, poor ownership, right? You got a coach who you thought was going to be able to do something, who's not doing anything, and you have quote unquote star players on the team.
Yeah.
You know, Drummond is your AJ Green, Blake Griffin is your whoever, and you know,
is your Andy Dalton,
and yet no one cares.
Yeah, it's just kind of like. You like watch them, and if I like wasn't from like
Detroit,
Michigan or like Detroit, like I would never watch the Pistons game.
Right.
I would watch wherever I'm like whatever. Like I'd watch almost any other team, to be honest with you.
Right.
Because you can go down the list and you can say every single team has some kind of interesting aspect to it. Except the Pistons.
It's a rough go.
Like in my opinion.
No, that's crazy too, right? And like I said, and that's kind of a reason why nobody cares, right? Is they're just so vanilla.
Yeah.
And what you know, doing some of the research for the show, and you see a team like Chicago, right? The Chicago Bulls are like top 3 in attendance. They are a terrible basketball team.
They're a terrible team.
They are terrible.
Well,
there is nothing
positive. You're addressing a Detroit sports
team.
issue, though.
Right, maybe I am. That's
Detroit,
true.
we're a little gritty over here. We're a little grumpy. It's just kind of our vibe.
Yeah.
Like, I think the last time I saw some people actively wearing Pistons jerseys was like when Chauncey Billups was still playing.
There you go. That's a name.
Like the last time I remember, I think I was in like elementary school, and that's the last time I remember like anyone ever like wearing Pistons attire.
Right, and I think you are in a spot right now with Detroit sports as a whole. Rings, Tigers, Pistons,
we literally just
and even the Lions,
roasting them.
Yeah, well, that's the sad part, right? Is that the fact that and we're roasting the Lions too because they're not playing this Sunday, so you kind of know, or next Sunday I should say. Because so the point being, you're in a spot right now where Detroit sports are at a pretty big low, right? Every year, for it seemed like Detroit sports at least had one team. The Wings for so long, where no matter what, we still got the Wings, right?
Yeah.
And then the Tigers kind of made things. Okay, we got the Tigers too. The Pistons were winning. We won a championship, you know, almost now a decade and a half ago. Wow. Where you go, wow, you know what I mean? So, like, we had the Pistons for a while, 6 straight Eastern Conference Finals, 2 championship runs, and everything else, and then you kind of had the Lions. But now, it's the complete opposite. The Lions are the closest team to winning a championship in Detroit, right, as the state of the franchise is right now, which is not a good thing, folks. Like,
I think I heard your heart crack.
I mean, I'm a diehard Lions fan, but I can call a spade when I say, that's not good. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's one of those things where, like you said, it is a Detroit sports problem, and it's something where you go, okay, clearly there's an issue here. But, I mean, they got Blake Griffin. You thought, okay, we got a superstar, and it kind of peaked attendance for a second there. Do you think that if they would come in, and let's just call our shot right now, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Do you think they make the playoffs, and if so, do you think that makes this team... You know, do you think that they're an interesting team going into the playoffs, or do you think that if they say they get the 8th seed, they're just going to go and Kawhi's going to have his way with them?
I'm going to say they don't make it.
Oh,
I can't see. I just can't see how they get in right now.
Well, Indiana might drop off because Oladipo's out.
They're not even the team below Charlotte anymore.
They're not anymore?
The Wizards are above them right now.
Oh, good Lord.
And the Magic are only 1 game away from the Pistons.
Right.
So, like, I just don't see, even if the Pacers start dropping off, I think the Pacers without Oladipo are better than the Pistons.
Damn.
And I think they can still squeak into, like, a low seed.
Yeah.
I mean, they are, like, 11 games above us right now. So, like, it has to be an 11-game swing in the next 30 games.
Do you think Charlotte's that much better than the Pistons, too?
I mean, I don't think they're much better, but I think they're better.
They're better overall.
Yeah,
it's like Mario Kart when you're in a race and you get stuck in the clump of people.
Right, and then there's the one guy out there.
There's like the 3 or like there's like one guy, and then there's just like a horde of people, and they're all
like when Rob plays us, he's like a lap ahead of us.
I'm better at Mario Kart than you. I'm just putting that out there.
Whoa. Like, yeah, you are.
That's not a sports related, but it's like that thing is they're all just gonna like shoulder each other around, and they're all gonna end up in the same spot.
So you're gonna say no? They're not making playoffs
I would say
this year?
no,
Jeez,
probably. I mean,
rough.
it's gonna be unless they do something down the stretch that impresses.
Yeah,
maybe,
there's some talks of them maybe trying to trade Drummond. We'll hit on that if actually
they're over halfway through the
to
season. They only have 21 wins, so if they double, Milwaukee's almost at 42 already.
Jeez,
and like
that's
some of these
sad.
teams are already at
Yeah, they can't.
halfway.
They gotta have at least 50 wins, I think, to get in. But Adam, call your shot. Did they make the
40s.
playoffs this year?
No.
All right. Well, that's pretty definitive. I'm gonna go. You know what? I'm gonna say. Jeez. Do I say yes and that they squeak in?
And you're right.
You know what? Fine. I'm gonna say yeah. I'm gonna differ from these guys, just like I did with my Royal Rumble pick on last week's episode, which you haven't heard. Make sure you listen to, because we had some good insight on there. But I'm gonna say yes. They somehow squeak in. I feel like it's one of those things. I feel like they're gonna do something stupid and they're gonna make a trade that's gonna maybe suffice the fan base for like a year, and then it's gonna be a total cluster.
Yeah, realistically, we're gonna go get Mike
team.
Conley, and his contract's gonna. We're not gonna be able to get a single other player.
I know, it's gonna be so bad. All right, well, good luck, Pistons. I guess I don't. It's rough.
I think they're gonna trade away everything.
They should. I really wish they could.
I've heard talks that they're gonna trade away like Bullock and Ish
Yeah.
for a first in New Orleans. If that happens, they're out the window.
Right. Well, I mean,
It's
I've heard
like-
stuff where they're talking to the Charlotte Hornets about trading Drummond too to
Yeah.
get maybe Batum, which would be just as bad a contract. Or they have that young guy too that they have, another big dude. But anyway, we'll hit on more of that if it happens. So stay tuned for that. Okay, let's shift to the final topic of the day. I want to remind everybody once again, if you didn't hear the commercial, you're skipping around on our YouTube channel that we're on Spotify, Google Play, and iTunes, as well as all other streaming services. So if you haven't subscribed already, you should. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, now's the time to do it. All right, now that I got some business out of the way, let's hit our final topic of the day. We're talking wrestling. We're hitting all 5 major sports that we cover on this show today. So we're getting a complete show from us this week, guys. Ronda Rousey, there's a report out there, some rumors that she could possibly be leaving the WWE after WrestleMania this year to start a family. You know, she's recently married a couple years ago. You know, she's kind of, it's kind of time for that, as you got to go. But if the rumors are true and she does actually leave, Em, I'll start with you. Are you shocked at all? Is that something to where you're like, wow, she just kind of, she's hot right now. She's performed well, right? She's really been a key piece of the division and for the WWE as a whole. Are you shocked by her leaving possibly?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to not like her, and then I kind of liked her.
Well,
I
think she came in and she performed well, and I think that's the biggest thing is that she doesn't look like she's out of place in there.
Yeah, no, I think I liked her. I think honestly, just the nature of wrestling, it's hard for women who do want to have children to have really long, prolific careers in wrestling, just because of how demanding the physicality of the sport is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And her husband's an MMA fighter, and so they're both like on the road moving around. So am I shocked that maybe? I feel like the UFC thing, the MMA thing, kind of was a rough spell for her. So it's almost like I feel like she needed to prove to herself.
Made a lot of money.
Yes, but I feel like she needed to prove herself that she can do something and she could do it well. Right. Maybe she's just in the place where she needs to have kids. I guess I'm not shocked, but I'm kind of bummed if she does. Right. Because I've enjoyed her presence.
That's true. That's true. Mike, same question, right? Are you shocked by the fact that she might be leaving?
I'm not shocked.
Well, let's just kind of segue with the next one, right?
Really
is it a bad loss for WWE, right? Because Adam said, right, she's a fan, so she's bummed out about it. So as a fan, right, and as a fan base, she's one of their top merch sellers. She gets a ginormous reaction every time she goes out there. Me and him were at Raw a few weeks ago when it was in Detroit, and she got a huge reaction, coming out there.
She was awesome.
You know what I mean? So is that a big loss for the WWE?
Could I say that WWE could live without her? Yes. However,
they can live without anybody. It's the machine.
Yeah, but would they absolutely miss her? Yes, also though. Yeah. As you said, she brings in so much merch. Everyone just absolutely.
It's an outside
adores her.
source too. It's bringing people that maybe don't watch WWE as a fan, and they go, these media outlets. Wow, Ronda Rousey's really killing it over there. Yeah, she's a 2-sport, maybe even 3-sport, really athlete. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With with the Olympics and everything.
Oh,
so
yeah, sure.
I think you're right. I think that they could survive, but I do think that's a huge blow to the WWE for a multitude of reasons, and the women's division, which kind of leads me to our final point of the episode is. You have guys and women, right, like Ronda, you have people like Brock Lesnar, you've got guys even similarly, even to people like let's say The Undertaker, right? If we're really getting back there, and Triple H and stuff like that, where you have these guys who you somewhat rely upon at times to kind of pop a rating, okay, or to pop a number, or to get people invested, right? I think that in the past, WWE had done a fantastic job of always getting the next guy ready, right? Like when Shawn Michaels was hurt, Stone Cold was the guy, right? And he was ready to go. So when he became champion, it was ready. When Stone Cold was done, The Rock took over. When The Rock was, you've always had guys, when The Rock was done, it was Brock. And when Brock to Cena and everything else, you know what I mean? So you had people always ready to go to take the next step and to be the next guy. I don't think WWE right now has that guy, right? They tried it with AJ with that long title reign. I think they tried to really hitch their wagon to it. I don't think it got the same reaction I think that they were hoping for. Does WWE need to do a better job of preparing the next wave, whether that's Seth Rollins, whether that's Roman, because Roman's the guy, right? But he's out, so you don't know how long he's going to be out. And they're totally blindsided by it, but they haven't tried to establish the next guy.
Yeah, I think it's...
Or woman in the women's division.
Yeah, I think it's such a weird scenario when you put it like that, because, like, I think they could. It's just, like, I feel like the writers just kind of, like, draw a blank space once something goes the way they don't expect. And I agree, it's probably hard to write these shows.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm not just like, oh, they're so bad at it. Blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm not saying any of that. But, like, so Roman wins the title, then he comes out and he has to leave for an extended period of time with his condition that he has.
Right.
So he has to relinquish the title. So they're like, okay, so we'll just give it back to Brock and have Brock hold it for a long time again.
Right. It's like they panicked.
Yeah, they like panicked. They're like, I don't know what to do, so we'll just give it back to Brock. Where in reality, I think they do have stars. I mean, you could give it to Rollins.
Yep.
You could give it to, like, Ambrose. I mean, if you wanted to, you could give it to McIntyre.
Absolutely.
You could give it
to Balor. That's the point. Right? I think that's the point, right? Is that they have so much depth, right? At certain, especially maybe not mid card as much, right? But you have pieces there. You have guys that are available for you, and you're not utilizing.
Yeah, I think they just panicked. Like, it's weird. Like SmackDown when AJ was having that long title run, but like at WrestleMania, they could just give it to Shinsuke. Had momentum. He just won the Rumble. You could have just been like, here you go, and you two can feud. And if one of them gets hurt or something happens, or if Shinsuke can carry it, you can move AJ to Raw if you needed to or something.
You have flexibility.
You have flexibility with Raw and SmackDown that, Shinsuke can take it by himself, then you can move AJ, or vice versa. You can do all this stuff. They just panic, like, Roman Reigns is out, I don't know what I'm going to do anymore.
And I feel like there's been some hesitant time to really kind of say and to elevate those guys, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, guys like Dolph Ziggler, who have been kind of in that middle card area for the while. Like, that's a guy who puts on a great show every time he goes out there. And the fact that you can't elevate a guy like that to those main event spots. Like, I think we all can kind of agree McIntyre is going to be a world champion probably in the next year, right? I think we can kind of agree that Seth Rollins is getting another ginormous push here, who's kind of going to be probably the guy that wins the Rumble more than likely. Charlotte, obviously, from the women's division. Becky Lynch is an epiphany for most fans, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in the Royal Rumble. But point being, I feel like, especially since Roman, and they tried with AJ, and Roman obviously was the next guy. But due to some circumstances that are out of his control, unfortunately, he's not. And I do think that this Universal title reign he would have had would have really, would have gotten people, if not firmly behind him, but would have really cemented, okay, he's the next guy for 10 years. You know what I mean?
And it's crazy how different, because NXT is. Because NXT, they're like developmental, air quotes around that, where like they do their thing and then they get called up or whatever, and then they go to the main roster. But it's weird how you can watch NXT and just say last year you had guys main eventing like McIntyre, Almas, and all these guys, and then they leave, but then you have Undisputed Era, Ricochet, Pete. You have guys
people that come right in.
Yeah,
right?
You have guys who just come right in. They're in there and they win. But like in the case of Roman Reigns, he leaves and you just have no idea what to do.
Yeah, nothing.
You are like, we did not expect that.
And that's an issue, right? Like they said, they've always been in preparation. I listen to so many of these wrestling podcasts where they're always preparing the next guy, right? You're looking for the next guy. When Hogan goes away, you had Macho Man. When there's not Macho Man, you had this guy. When Flair leaves, you had Bret. When Bret leaves, you had Shawn. You know what I mean? So you have these guys ready to go in the wings. And same question, right? Do you feel like WWE needs to do a better job of really taking some of this talent that they have, especially the upper echelon talent, and making them available and having them ready to go. So if an instance, right, where Brock leaves and goes to the UFC, you have the next guy ready to go. Whether that's Braun, whether that's Seth, whether that's Ambrose, whether it's Bobby Lashley, whoever. There needs to be the next guy who's groomed so that when that guy leaves, fans go, oh yeah, it makes total sense. He's champion now. It makes total sense.
Well, sometimes it confuses me a little bit because I feel like it's always the same couple people at WWE, especially since I started watching. It's been super dependent on like Roman, those folks. But other people definitely get like pops when they come in.
Absolutely.
It's like, I could get if maybe the people just weren't interested in other wrestlers and you were dying for like a ratings thing.
Yeah.
But I don't... Yeah, so it's, I don't know. I think it's odd to me.
The ratings are going to be what they are, right? It's just how it is, right?
Whether you have Roman Reigns wrestling.
I think too many people read into those nowadays, right? I think people really try to read into the ratings as like some major, which they are down, right? And we talked about that on our premiere episode, but it's not as big a deal. The WWE makes so much money, it doesn't matter. Okay, why did Fox just give them billions of dollars to move to their network? It's because they draw people. Okay, it's a money thing, but I do think that they need to really heavily invest in some of this depth that they do have, and maybe they need to bring up more guys.
Yeah.
And not Lars Sullivan.
I would say
actual guys.
I think a problem with the ratings thing was a big injury bug came around when like Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn and all these guys, Roman and all these.
Strowman's been in and out too.
Especially on the Raw side. Not really SmackDown hasn't had that bad of an issue, I don't think. But Raw, especially for 3 hours, and all these guys are going down, and then you're just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. You should move some guys around.
I think, with the Royal Rumble coming up and everything else, it's going to be a huge thing. But that's going to do it for us this week. We're going to be talking some other major topics. Be on the lookout for a quick hitter episode probably this week, talking all about the Super Bowl, Patriots, and Rams. So that'll be coming your way probably middle this week. Also remember to know that our YouTube show goes live every Wednesday, okay? The podcast goes live Monday morning at 7. The YouTube version goes live Wednesday at 7 in the morning. So be on the lookout for that. We appreciate all the support, and we will see you guys, as always, next week.